There is one story in my life that I can never forget. It is the story that changed everything for me. Even now, when I close my eyes, I can feel it. I can see the place where it happened. I can hear the voices, soft and strong at the same time. I can feel the air on my skin, like it was yesterday. This story is not just something that happened once and then disappeared. No, this story stayed with me. It became part of me. It shaped who I am today. And that is why I want to share it with you. Maybe you are wondering, why should I listen? Why is this story important for me? My friend, I believe this story is not only about me. It is also about you. It is about all of us who try, who fall, who cry, and who stand up again. Because in life, every one of us meets fear. Every one of us meets failure. And every one of us has a choice, to give up, or to keep going. This story is about the moment I chose not to give up. It is about the moment when hope returned to my heart. When I tell you this story, I am not speaking as a teacher. I am not giving you a lesson from a book. I am speaking as a friend who has walked through dark days, who has felt weak, who has doubted themselves many times. Maybe you have felt the same when you tried to speak English and the words did not come. Maybe you have felt the same when people did not understand you, or when you made a mistake and you wanted to hide. I know that feeling. I lived inside that feeling for many years. That is why I believe you will understand me. And here is something important, while you listen to my story, you are also practicing English. Every word you hear, every sentence you follow, is making you stronger. You are not only listening to my life. You are also training your mind, your ears, and your heart. So in one way, this story is two gifts in one. It is a gift for your spirit, and it is a gift for your English. So please, stay with me. Open your heart. Do not listen fast. Listen slowly. Feel the words. Imagine the pictures in your mind. Because this story gave me hope when I had none. It showed me light when I only saw darkness. It gave me courage when I wanted to run away. And maybe, just maybe, today this story can do the same for you. Are you ready? Let us begin together. Have you ever had a moment in your life that felt like a line dividing, before and after? A moment so strong that everything changed, and you could never go back to the person you were before? For me, this story is that moment. Before it, my life felt heavy, dark, and full of fear. After it, things did not suddenly become perfect, but they began to change. I started to see light. I started to believe that maybe, just maybe, I could be more than I thought. That moment was not magic. It did not solve everything at once. But it planted a seed inside me, a seed of hope. I want to tell you something important. Hope is small, but it is powerful. Sometimes hope is just a whisper. Sometimes it is just one person's words, or one experience that touches your heart. But from that whisper, from that tiny seed, a whole forest can grow. That is what happened to me. And I want you to know, my friend, while you listen, this is not only my story. I believe it can also become your story. Because the lessons I learned from this experience are the same lessons that can help you with your English, with your dreams, and with your life. So as you listen, do not only ask, what happened to this person? Ask yourself, what does this mean for me? What is my story? What moment is waiting for me? When I think back, I see clearly, my life was divided. Before that moment, I was broken, lost, and afraid. After that moment, I began to rise, little by little. Not quickly, not easily, but truly. So in this video, I will not only share what happened. I will share how I felt, what I learned, and how I changed. I will share the tears, the doubts, the struggles, but also the strength and the courage that grew inside me. And maybe, as you listen, you will find your own courage too. Let us go back now, back to the time before my story began. Let us step into the days when I felt most lost. Because to understand the light, you must first understand the darkness. Before this story, my life felt very heavy. Every morning I woke up, and instead of feeling excited, I felt tired. I looked in the mirror, and I did not like the person I saw. I saw someone who was weak, someone who was afraid, someone who could not do anything right. I wanted to change, but I did not know how. I wanted to feel strong, but I felt smaller and smaller each day. Maybe you know this feeling. When you try to speak English but the words do not come out. When you listen, but everything feels too fast, too difficult. When you want to join a conversation, but your confidence is so low that you stay silent. That was me, but not only in English. It was in every part of my life. I was afraid to try, because I was afraid to fail. I thought that if I stayed in my safe place, nobody would laugh at me. But the truth is, that place was not safe at all. It was like a prison. I wanted freedom. I wanted to speak, to grow, to shine. But the chains of fear held me down. Each day felt the same. Wake up, feel weak, go through the motions, go to bed, and repeat. Each night, I went to sleep feeling more lost than before. I asked myself, is this all there is? Is this my life forever? And deep inside, I heard a small voice that said, you can be more. But that voice was small, and the louder voice of fear drowned it out. So I stayed stuck. And that is where I was before the story entered my life. The biggest struggle I faced was not outside me. It was inside me. It was the voice in my head that never stopped speaking. That voice told me, you are not good enough. You will fail again. People will laugh at you. You will never succeed. And because I heard it so often, I began to believe it. That voice followed me everywhere. When I tried to speak to people, the voice whispered, they will not listen. They will think you are strange. When I wanted to try something new, the voice shouted, you are too late. You are too weak. It was like carrying a heavy weight that I could never put down. I wanted to silence the voice, but I did not know how. So I lived with it. It became my companion, my shadow. It was there when I woke up. It was there when I went to sleep. It was there in my dreams. And maybe you know that feeling too. Maybe when you try to speak English, the same voice speaks to you. Don't open your mouth. Don't make a mistake. People will laugh. And because you listen, you stay quiet. You stay small. That was me, in everything. Not only in English, but in my whole life. I was afraid of judgment. I was afraid of mistakes. I was afraid of being seen. So I gave up before I even began. That was my struggle. That was my prison. And that was my world before my story began to change. Paragraph 5, feeling lost and alone, almost equals 500 words. I remember the nights most clearly. Nights when everything was quiet, but inside me there was a storm. I sat alone and asked myself heavy questions. Why am I like this? Why can't I be strong like other people? Why do I always stop before I succeed? These questions had no answers. They only made me feel smaller. I wanted someone to understand, but no one did. My friends could not see how heavy my heart was. My family saw only the surface. On the outside, maybe I looked normal. Maybe I even smiled. But inside, I was breaking. I was a person who wanted to speak but could not. A person who wanted to grow but felt chained. And the more I stayed silent, the more invisible I became. I remember times when people talked around me, but I did not join. It was like I was not even there. And that feeling of being invisible cut me deeply. Maybe you know that feeling too, when you try to speak English, but nobody understands. Or when your words come slowly, and people move on without waiting. It hurts. It makes you feel like you are not enough. That was me every single day. I felt lost. I felt alone. And worst of all, I started to believe, maybe this is just who I am. Maybe I will always be this way. That thought was the heaviest chain of all. But I was wrong. Something was coming. Something I did not expect. Something that would change me forever. One day, something small happened that began to change everything. It was not planned. It was not something I looked for. It was just an ordinary day. I was walking, lost in my own thoughts, when I saw something that caught my attention. It was a small sign outside a building. The sign said, "Free talk, practice your English." At first, I walked past it. My heart said, "No, don't go. You will fail. People will laugh." That old voice came back again, loud and strong. But for some reason, my feet stopped. I stood there, reading the words again and again. Free talk. Practice your English. My heart beat fast. I thought, should I go in? Should I just look? In that moment, I felt two sides fighting inside me. One side said, go home. Stay safe. Don't risk anything. The other side whispered, what if this is your chance? What if something good is waiting inside? I stood there for a long time. My hands were shaking. My mouth was dry. But finally, with all my courage, I opened the door. When I walked inside, I saw a small group of people. They were sitting in a circle, talking. And in the middle was a woman with a warm smile. She looked at me, and instead of judgment, I saw kindness. She said, hello, welcome. Come, sit down. Her voice was soft, but full of energy. I wanted to run away, but her smile pulled me in. So I sat down. The people in the circle began to introduce themselves. One by one, they said their names, where they were from, why they wanted to learn English. My heart was racing, because I knew my turn was coming. When it came to me, my mouth felt heavy. The voice inside me shouted, don't do it. You will sound stupid. But something inside me pushed back. I opened my mouth and said, my name is, the words were broken, but they were real. My hands shook. My face burned. But the teacher smiled and said, good. Very good. And for the first time, I felt a small light inside me. That first meeting was not easy. I made many mistakes. Sometimes I did not understand what others said. Sometimes I stayed silent, lost in confusion. But something surprised me. Nobody laughed. Nobody looked down on me. Instead, they smiled. They waited. They listened. And when I tried, even with broken words, they clapped softly, encouraging me. I thought, is this real? Are they really happy for me? It felt so different from what the voice in my head always told me. The voice said people would laugh. But here, people supported me. That was new. That was strange. That was powerful. I went home that night feeling both tired and excited. My English was weak, but my heart felt a little stronger. For the first time, I thought, maybe I can learn. Maybe I can change. After that day, something new began inside me, curiosity. I wanted to know more. I wanted to see what would happen if I kept going back. So the next week, I returned. My hands still shook. My voice still trembled. But I went. And again, the teacher smiled. Again, the group welcomed me. Step by step, I began to speak more. Sometimes only one word. Sometimes one short sentence. But each word was a victory. Each sentence was a small mountain I climbed. I began to notice something else too. The more I tried, the quieter the negative voice became. It was still there, but softer. And another voice began to grow louder, the voice of hope. It said, see? You can do this. You are learning. Keep going. That voice was new. That voice was kind. And I wanted to hear it more. Paragraph 10, the first lesson, almost equals 500 words. Looking back, I see that the first lesson of my story was simple but powerful: small steps matter. Before, I thought change had to be big, fast, and perfect. I thought if I could not speak English fluently in one day, then I was a failure. But that first meeting showed me the truth. Change is slow. Growth is small. But every small step is important. One word is better than silence. One try is better than fear. One meeting is better than giving up. That lesson connected not only to English, but to life itself. I realized that I did not need to become perfect today. I only needed to try today. I only needed to take one small step, and then another. And if I kept going, step by step, I could reach places I never imagined. That is the lesson I want to share with you now, my friend. Do not wait for perfect. Do not wait for the right time. Take one small step today. Speak one word today. Listen to one English sentence today. Each small action is a victory. Each small action is a seed that will grow. That was the beginning of my change, and it can be the beginning of yours too. The second big lesson I learned was about persistence. Before my story began, I thought I was weak because I always gave up too soon. If something felt difficult, I would stop. If I made a mistake, I would hide. If people looked at me, I would run away. I believed that strong people never felt fear. But I was wrong. I learned that strong people also feel fear. The difference is, they keep going even when they are afraid. At the free talk group, I made mistake after mistake. Sometimes I used the wrong word. Sometimes I could not finish a sentence. Sometimes I said nothing at all. The old me would have given up immediately. But this time, something was different. I remembered the teacher's smile. I remembered the kindness of the group. And I said to myself, I will come back again, no matter what. That promise became my strength. I learned that persistence is not about being perfect. Persistence is about showing up again and again. It is about standing up when you fall down. It is about saying, I will not quit today. And each time you do that, you grow a little stronger. That is what I began to discover in those early days. Another lesson was about the power of small steps. I used to think that success was one big jump. I thought one day I would suddenly speak English fluently. I thought one day I would suddenly feel confident. But the truth is different. Confidence does not come in one day. Fluency does not come in one day. Change does not come in one day. It comes in many small steps. Every time I said one word, that was a step. Every time I listened and understood one sentence, that was a step. Every time I entered the room, even when I was afraid, that was a step. These steps were small, but together they built a new me. It is the same for you, my friend. Maybe today you can only say one sentence. That is enough. Maybe today you can only listen for 5 minutes. That is enough. Because small steps are never wasted. They are seeds, and seeds always grow if you keep watering them. That was the second lesson my story taught me, and it changed how I saw everything. The third lesson was about courage. I used to think courage meant not being afraid. But I discovered that courage means being afraid and trying anyway. When I first spoke in the group, I was terrified. My hands were shaking, my voice was weak, my face was red. But I spoke anyway. And that was courage. Each time I returned, I felt the same fear. But I also felt a little stronger. I began to believe, maybe I can do this. Maybe I am not as weak as I thought. That belief was small, but it was new. It was like a tiny flame inside me. And the more I tried, the brighter that flame grew. Believing in yourself is not easy. It does not happen overnight. It happens step by step, word by word. And every time you choose courage instead of fear, your belief grows. That is what I learned. And it is what I want you to learn too. There was another lesson hidden in my story, the power of encouragement. Alone, I was weak. Alone, I wanted to give up. But with the teacher's smile, with the group's support, I felt stronger. Their words were simple: good job, keep going, don't worry, but they were powerful. They lifted me up when I was ready to fall. That taught me something important: words can heal. Words can build. Words can give life. And I began to understand that I could also give encouragement to others. When someone else in the group struggled, I smiled at them. I clapped for them. I said, "You can do it." And I saw the same light in their eyes that I had felt before. Encouragement is free, but it is priceless. It can change someone's day. It can even change someone's life. That was another lesson I carried with me from those meetings. After learning these lessons, my actions began to change. Before, I would avoid English. I would run from conversations. I would stay silent. But now, I wanted to practice. I wanted to face my fear. So I created new habits. I started small. Every day, I promised to say at least one English sentence out loud. Sometimes it was to myself in the mirror. Sometimes it was to a friend. Sometimes it was to the group. But every day, I practiced. I also began listening to English for a few minutes daily. I watched short videos. I repeated sentences. Slowly, these habits grew. At first, the habits felt strange. They were difficult. But little by little, they became normal. Just like brushing my teeth, practicing English became part of my life. And because of that, my progress became steady. Daily practice changed everything. Before, I only studied when I felt motivated. But motivation comes and goes. Habits stay. Even on days when I was tired, I spoke one sentence. Even on days when I was sad, I listened for 5 minutes. These daily actions built discipline. And discipline is stronger than motivation. Each day I practiced, I felt a little progress. Maybe nobody else noticed. Maybe my sentences were still broken. But I knew. I could see the difference between yesterday and today. That gave me hope. That gave me energy to continue. For you too, my friend, daily practice is the key. Not a lot. Not perfect. Just consistent. Because small daily steps create big results over time. Another change was how I measured success. Before, I thought success meant perfection. I thought if I made mistakes, I was a failure. But now, I realize success meant progress. If I said more words today than yesterday, that was success. If I understood one more sentence today than yesterday, that was success. But I must be honest with you, my friend. Change was not easy. The road was not smooth. Even as I grew stronger, I still faced many struggles. Some days I felt like I was moving backward. Some days I could not speak at all, and I felt the old shame return. Some days I compared myself to others and thought, I will never be like them. There were nights when I cried. There were moments when I wanted to quit. There were times when I asked myself, why am I trying? Why don't I just stay silent? The journey was full of mistakes, full of failures, full of doubts. But here is what I learned: struggle is not the end. Struggle is part of growth. Mistakes are not signs of failure. Mistakes are signs of learning. Doubt is not a reason to stop. Doubt is a test, asking, will you continue anyway? So even in my struggles, I decided to keep going. And that decision, to continue through the pain, made all the difference. Even after I began to change, there were times when I fell down again. Sometimes I went to the group and forgot all my words. My mouth felt empty, and my mind was blank. I sat there in silence, and shame returned. Other times, I tried to speak, but nobody understood me. Their faces looked confused, and my heart sank. I thought, here it is again. I am a failure. The old voice whispered, see? Nothing has changed. Those moments hurt me deeply. But something was different now. Before, when I failed, I stopped. This time, when I failed, I tried again. When I was silent one day, I promised to speak the next day. When I was misunderstood, I tried to explain again. I still fell, but now I stood up faster. That became my new strength. I learned that success is not about never falling. It is about falling and standing up again. And each time I stood up, I grew stronger. There were also moments when fear came back very strongly. For example, one day the teacher asked me to share a short story with the group. My heart began to race. My hands shook. I wanted to say no. The voice screamed inside me, you can't do it. You will embarrass yourself. For a moment, I almost believed it. But then I remembered the lessons. Small steps. Persistence. Courage. Encouragement. I took a deep breath and began to speak. My story was broken, full of mistakes, but I finished it. When I was done, everyone clapped. My face was red, but my heart was full. I realized that fear will always return. Doubt will always whisper. But I do not need to listen. I can choose which voice to follow. And when I follow the voice of courage, my world becomes bigger. Slowly, the results of my new life began to appear. My English improved. My sentences became longer. My words became clearer. I understood more and more when people spoke. But the results were not only in English. They were also in me. I walked with more confidence. I looked at people's eyes instead of looking down. I felt stronger, inside and outside. And opportunities began to appear. One day, a friend asked me to help translate something small. I did it, and they thanked me. Another day, a stranger asked me a question in English, and I answered without panic. These were small moments, but to me, they were proof. Proof that I was no longer the same person I used to be. Proof that change was real. Proof that growth was possible. With each step, I began to dream again. Before, I had no dreams. I thought my future would always be small and dark. But now, I started to believe in possibilities. I thought, maybe one day I can travel. Maybe one day I can meet people from around the world. Maybe one day I can share my story and help others. These dreams gave me energy. They made me wake up with purpose. They made me continue even when it was hard. I understood something important: when you grow, your future grows. When you change, your dreams change. The story was not only about English anymore. It was about building a new future for myself. Looking back, I see a clear transformation. I started as someone who was afraid to speak even one word. I became someone who could share stories. I started as someone who hid from the world. I became someone who faced the world with courage. I started as someone who believed they were weak. I became someone who believed in their own strength. This transformation did not happen in one day. It happened step by step, mistake by mistake, practice by practice. And that is why I want you to believe in your own journey too. If I can change, you can change. If I can grow, you can grow. The story that changed my life can also change yours, if you take it into your heart. Now I want to turn to you, my friend. You are listening to my story, and maybe you are thinking about your own life. Maybe you remember times when you were afraid to speak. Maybe you remember times when you wanted to give up. Maybe you remember nights when you felt small, lost, or invisible. I want you to know this: you are not alone. I was there too. Many people are there too. And if I could find a way forward, so can you. Your English journey is not only about grammar and vocabulary. It is about courage. It is about persistence. It is about small steps. It is about believing in yourself. That is why I shared my story with you. Because I believe these lessons can help you on your own path. Let me say the lessons again, slowly, so you remember them. Lesson 1, don't give up. Even when you fail, stand up and try again. Lesson 2, start small. One word is enough. One sentence is enough. One step is enough. Lesson 3, believe in yourself. Courage is not the absence of fear. Courage is trying even when you are afraid. Lesson 4, encourage others, and accept encouragement from others. Words can give life. Words can give hope. If you hold on to these lessons, you will not only learn English. You will also learn life. And that is the true gift of this story. Now I want to challenge you, my friend. Today, not tomorrow, take one small action. Speak one sentence in English. Listen to one short video in English. Write one line in English. Do something, no matter how small. And then do it again tomorrow. Build the habit. Build the persistence. Build the courage. Do not wait for the perfect moment. Do not wait for confidence. Action creates confidence. Progress creates belief. Start now, where you are, with what you have. That is the secret. That is how change begins. Paragraph 29, imagining their future, almost equals 500 words. Close your eyes for a moment and imagine your future. Imagine yourself speaking English with confidence. Imagine yourself traveling, meeting people, making friends, opening new doors. Imagine yourself smiling, strong, proud of how far you have come. This future is possible. It is waiting for you. But it begins today. It begins with one small step, one small action, one small word. I want you to feel that picture in your heart. Because when you can see your future, you can move toward it. When you can believe in your dream, you can take the steps to reach it. And step by step, day by day, you will arrive. My friend, this is my story. The story that I can never forget. The story that changed my life forever. I began as someone full of fear, and I became someone full of hope. I began as someone who stayed silent, and I became someone who found their voice. I began as someone who gave up, and I became someone who kept going. And now I want to give this story to you. Because maybe, today, this story can change your life too. Maybe it can remind you that you are not weak. Maybe it can remind you that you are not alone. Maybe it can remind you that your future is waiting. So keep learning. Keep growing. Keep believing. Do not give up. Start small. Take action. Believe in yourself. Because your story is not finished yet. The next chapter is waiting. And I believe, with all my heart, that it will be beautiful.